Are you looking for a great stain eliminating primer? Something that gives you variety of colors from clear to white to gray to dark gray? Do you also want a primer that's a 2-in-1? Something that has not only stain eliminating properties, but is great for adhesion on those glossy laminate type surfaces? I'm going to walk through all 4 of those that we have here at Wisol today. Today's going to be all about our Wisol paint primer. We have a primer that is both stain eliminating and for adhesion. And what we'll have for you is a clear, a white, a gray, and now our brand new dark gray. And today I'm going to actually go through everything. We're going to pop the cans open. I'm going to show you what it looks like out of the can, and I'll tell you why here in a second. And then I'm actually going to paint on the sample board each one of the colors, 2 coats, so you can actually see me both paint it on and actually what the color looks like. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So again, I'm going to bring the camera a little closer. I'm going to tilt it down. You're going to see me. You're just going to see the cans because I want to show you what it looks like when you initially pop your can open, and you'll see why here in a second. And then we'll go on to the next step of painting each color on this board for 2 coats so you can see. And throughout that, I'm going to give you a little bit of the information about how to use it, why to use it this way or that way. And in addition to that, we also have all of our color palettes with information about which primer you should use for that color. So if you're wondering which color should I pick, you want to contact your local retailer or check out on our Wisol Paint Facebook page to find that color palette to actually look to see, okay, I'm painting with a blue, I need this kind of primer. At least that's our recommendation for you. So that's going to be another resource we'll have for you along with this video. And then in addition, I'll link below the video to how to prep a piece for painting, which the last step will be using these primers. So you'll have the cleaning process and then the priming part, and then this will be a good video for you just to kind of get a little bit more information about our primer. Okay, so I got you all zoomed in, and I wanted to show you this because I've seen this question a couple times on our Facebook page and some other groups where someone had opened a can of the primer and it didn't look white or it didn't look gray, and they're wondering what was going on. And I just wanted to go over this real quick before we get into any more of the primer stuff. So I'm going to pop these tops off and you'll kind of see what I'm talking about right off the bat. So that's the clear. This is supposed to be white, right? This one is supposed to be gray. And this is the dark gray, which I happened to use the other day. So it's already kind of mixed up. So this is what you're going to see. So you get a brand new can from your local retailer and you're like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with my primer? There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It just takes some stirring. And just what happens is the pigments separate and they get down to the bottom and they kind of sit down there. So what you want to do is you just want to stir, 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 and stir some more. And you can see how beautifully white that is. Our white primer is pure, pure, pure white. So really amazing if you're painting with snow owl or any really light colored things that you want to save your paint and use the primer to cover up some dark if you're painting over. So this is the big thing I wanted to go over, why I zoomed in. I just want to show you guys that there's nothing wrong with your primer if you open it up and it has this weird yellowy clear liquid. It's just the chemicals within the primer that separate over time when it just sits on a shelf. It's the same reason why you're going to want to stir your paint up. So you're just going to stir, and again, you see it just kind of transforming from that clear yellowy liquid into the beautiful pure white color of our white primer. So you're just going to need to stir really, really good. That's the big point I wanted to get to and why I zoomed in. So you see there's the white. Also, another point I wanted to make is that the clear is not actually clear. That's actually this milky white color, like this, but it dries completely clear. I mean, completely clear. So if you want to do any distressing down through, you're not going to get white or gray or dark gray popping through. You're just going to get the wood that you want. So I wanted to stir this up and show you guys that it's still going to stay this milky white even when you initially paint it on, but then it's going to dry clear. And what I'm actually going to do when I paint is I'm going to start with a white, or clear, then go white, then gray, then dark gray. So by the time I get to the dark gray, the clear should have already dried and you'll already see what I'm talking about. But this is a great example of how stuff kind of gets to the bottom. You can see the chunks there. That just happens over time when stuff sits on your shelf. And I think this clear is probably, obviously, yeah, this is probably the one that has sat the longest, I think, in my shop. So you just have to dig around down there and stir it up really, really good. Get all those chunks broken up and then stirred in, because all those chunks are part of the chemical compounds that make it stain eliminating and great for adhesion, right? So then we're going on to, this is gray. So our gray is a light gray color, which this does not look light gray at all, but watch. We'll pull this up from the bottom. There's all your pigments. They're all sat down at the bottom, and that top part is likely your stain eliminating adhesion stuff. So we want to stir it all up really, really good, like we did the white over there. And once you get it all good and stirred, then you're gonna be ready to use it, to paint it on, use it in any way you're gonna use it. But I just felt this was really important to lay out for everybody, because sometimes, you know, if you get a brand new can and you look at it, you could be a little frustrated at seeing that clear yellow liquid and thinking, well, maybe I got a bad can or something. That's just not the fact. You just have to stir it up really good, and that's all there is to it. So we got gray here, which is really awesome. And you see, just stir it up, dig down to the bottom. If there's chunks down there, get them, pull them all up, stir it up really, really good. And then last but not least, we have our dark gray. This is brand new, just came out. So we have a really great selection of primers, all-in-ones. Again, it's for stain eliminating and adhesion. So both all-in-one product with 4 different colors. So there you have it. So what I'm gonna do, again, I'm gonna finish stirring these up, and then we're gonna actually paint them on. And I'm gonna show you how I do that. And then that way you can actually see it, both painted on and actually what it looks like dry. I'm gonna do 2 coats, and then we're gonna walk through some more of the technical information about it. All right, now we get to the fun part, actually painting it on. I'm gonna paint on 1 coat of each color, and then I'm gonna come back in 4 to 6 hours and paint on the second coat. And that's our recommendation, anywhere from 4 to 6 hours for a recoat, depending on, you know, your humidity and all that kind of stuff in your area. Ultimately, it's gonna be dry to the touch, should be, in about an hour. And then we wanna give it that time to do its thing chemically with the surface you're painting it to, especially for adhesion, to dry and do its thing for at least 4 hours, 6 hours tops, depending on, you know, like again, your current heat and humidity level, that kind of thing. Anything that's gonna affect its drying capabilities. But 4 to 6 hours is usually about our recommended recoat time. So we're gonna start with clear, and then we're gonna go clear, white, gray, dark gray. That way, by the time we get to the dark gray, you should already start to see the clear become clear ultimately. Because it's gonna start out with this cloudy white color. So don't get freaked out, because it will dry clear. All right, get some on there. And I actually have my Klingon F50, and it's kind of my go-to brush for priming. It just allows me to get some on a wider area, and when you're brushing on a liquid, it has a good spread to the brush, so it allows me to get it everywhere it needs to go. I can jab it down into the spots. So just my go-to brush for priming. So if you're looking for, you know, the best one, this is the one to use for priming. Okay, so you can already see it's going on, and you really can't even see it in comparison to what it looked like out of the can. It has that cloudy white. And over this lighter colored wood, you're not even gonna see that cloudy white to start with. It's just gonna kind of go on clear. But if you're using a darker wood, it might have a little bit of that cloudy look to it at first, and then it will just dry beautifully clear. That way, when you want to distress down through your paint, you can do that and not have to worry about any of the colors from the primer creeping through. So that's why clear is a great option. If you're just not sure what your finish is going to look like in the end, and you're not sure if you're going to distress, clear is the way to go. So it will level out pretty evenly all by itself. So you just want to kind of get it on and feather it flat and let gravity do its work. just like that. And that's gonna be all there is to it. So we're gonna leave that alone. We're gonna move on to the next. And the next is going to be white. Again, our white primer is pure white. So like Snow Owl, if you're looking for a match color. So it's really perfect for those lighter colors, like a Snow Owl. It'll save you from having to paint multiple coats of white, which we all hate to do. If you just start with a really great coverage with a white primer, you're gonna watch this primer go on, and it has amazing coverage. I mean, it's gonna look like I painted it, not just primed it here in a second. So again, we're just gonna kind of slap it on here because the drying time, or the open time, the time it has before it dries, is pretty good. I mean, it's pretty long for a primer. So you kind of have time just to kind of slap it on, right? And then feather it in where and how you want it to go. Because you're gonna wanna feather it in, so 2 thin coats, and feather it in really good, because if you leave it like brush strokes within, because you did it too thick, it'll show through in your layers of paint, which obviously you don't wanna do. So I'm just gonna, you see I'm going pretty quick, but you don't really have to go, you know, too terribly fast, because again, it has a pretty good open time, so you'll have time to play. So, okay, so I got it on there, and now I'm just gonna kind of feather it in. Gently go over the top, usually with the grain, the wood, or whatever, you know, directionality you're gonna go with the paint. That way, if anything does show through, it's gonna match what you already are gonna have going on with your paint layers. But you can see, like, that's amazing coverage for white. It's just incredible. So basically, before I even get to my white paint, it's already gonna be white. So you're not gonna have to do 3 and 4 layers of white paint, which is always very frustrating. So save yourself some trouble and start with a great white primer. So that's white. All right, so next is gonna be our gray, and got it all good and stirred up. This is actually gonna be a nice light gray color. And again, amazing coverage. You would expect that from grays anyway. So again, we're just slapping this stuff on here. And one of the tricks I like to do is kind of go against the direction I'm going to actually finish with to get it on, and then feather it in the direction that I'm going to go. That way we know it's gonna get into all the areas we want it to get into. Because sometimes when you just go the direction you're gonna wanna go, it's not getting into those, especially on raw wood, and those cracks and crevices and things. So you wanna go against grain to force the primer down into all the areas you want it to go to. So you can see, already have the clears already starting to dry up. And another thing that's cool, and I can see it right now, is that the open time is long enough where I could come back, you know, 5–10 minutes later, and if I had any pooling spots, which I see right here, I'm gonna be able to get it and take care of it before it dries, because this stuff will dry, and because of the adhesion qualities, it's gonna dry and it's gonna leave that little pool spot, and you're gonna have to dig it out, because it really sticks really well. So you wanna make sure if you do have any pooling spots that you get those before they completely dry, so it's not like a problem you're gonna have to deal with later. So okay, I got that on, I'm gonna feather it out. And then I'm gonna come back to my little pooling spot I had with clear, make sure I got the right brush. And I'm just gonna jab into that spot and clean that up a little bit. That way I'm not dealing with that later. So there you go, just like that. So just kind of lay it back out. And last but not least, our brand new dark gray, which I've already used a couple times and I'm very happy with, because it's gonna be an amazing color when you need that dark primer. All right, here we go. And again, just slapping it on, going in opposite directions of the grain will really get it on and down into the areas you needed to get to. And then when you get to the feathering step of it, you can just kind of feather it out the way the direction that you want to actually have it go. And again, it's going to be 4 to 6 hours. So I'm going to come back in 4 hours from now and I'm going to do my second coat. We highly recommend 2 coats. You can see the coverage is truly amazing. For 1 coat of primer, it looks like you don't even need a second coat. But we definitely recommend doing 2 coats, especially for stain eliminating. The stain eliminating properties really need that second coat, because as much as it might look like it's completely covered, you might miss just that one spot you miss, and that's where you have the stain start to creep through. So that second coat is just going to ensure that it has complete coverage, and it's going to completely block out any stains that want to try to creep through. So 4 to 6 hours later, do your second coat. Now, if you happen to be a little heavy-handed painting this on, and you did do thin coats, but 2 thin coats is what you should do. But if you happen to be a little heavy-handed, you can sand in between coats and get out any little lumps or bumps or anything you might have, just to smooth it out before you get to that second coat. And I do that sometimes. If I feel through and there's any little specks or something like that, I just kind of gently, lightly go over the top of it. And you can do it after the first coat and after the second coat, just to make sure you have a really beautiful, flat, nice surface to start from while you're painting. So there we have it. So we have all of our colors painted on, 1 thin coat, feathered in. I can go back and look to see if I have any pooling anywhere before I let it dry completely. And then I go 4 to 6 hours. I usually go about 4, depending on, you know, how hot and humid it is here in Florida. And then I'll do my second coat. And I'm actually going to do that here with you guys so you can see what it looks like after the 2 coats go on. But it's going to be like I painted these, not like I primed these, because it's going to be complete coverage of the white, the gray, and the dark gray. And then as you can see, the clear has already started to clear up. So all it really did was it darkened the wood a little bit because of the moisture because these are water-based products. But there's no like milky white color to it like you saw in the can, which is amazing. So if you're distressing down through and you don't want the primer to show, the clear is the way to go. So that's going to be it for right now. And I'm going to come back, like I said, 4 to 6 hours and paint a second coat for you. Okay, before I go 4 to 6 hours and come back with my second coat, your brushes. I walked away and came back after I was about to go wash these and realized I didn't mention that. So I want to mention right now so I did my first coat, I'm going to wait 4 to 6 hours. If this was paint, especially with Klingon brushes and our Wise-Out paints, you could throw it in a Ziploc bag and just kind of set it down off the side and come back to it. But with primer, no matter whether you're using these really amazing Klingon brushes or any other brush, the primer has really awesome adhesion properties, and you don't want to leave them just laying around. You definitely want to wash them after every use. So even if I'm going to come back in 4 hours, I do not want to put this in a Ziploc bag, even if it's airtight. I don't want to even attempt to do that because it might harden up on me, and then I'm ruining my brush, or it's making it harder. It probably won't ruin it because you can definitely clean them. It's just going to make it really, really hard to clean them, because the way the primer is, it's going to really adhere to these if I just left it, even in a Ziploc bag. So I wanted to come back and make sure I mentioned that. I'm going to go wash these, let them dry, so those 4 hours later, I'll have nice clean brushes to start from. And again, once you're done, please ensure you wash your brushes. Okay, so we've waited those 4 to 6 hours and we're on to our second coat. And I wanted to go over that with you just so I could show you what it's going to look like. And I've actually done a light sanding with 220 to ensure there wasn't any bumps or any ridges or anything throughout my first coat of primer, just to ensure my second coat of primer goes on just as smooth, and we're starting with a really beautifully smooth surface to start painting with. So again, I popped the tops and stirred. No matter how long it's been, I highly recommend stirring after each use, after every time you put the top back on, to go back in and stir it up once more. So we're going to start with the clear once again, because I just want to show again how it goes on that kind of milky white color. and then just ends up being super clear and beautiful for you, as you saw before I started here, to have a surface where you can distress down through and not have to worry about any colors popping through other than the wood that you're looking for. But you're gonna have that adhesion qualities from the primer, you're gonna have the stain blocking from the primer, you're gonna have all the stuff that you want without any color added to it. So again, we're doing the same exact process that we did the first go around. We're just gonna get it on, the open time is long, and then we're going to feather it in, making sure to jab into any corners and ridges to ensure that there's no pooling going on. And we're just gonna feather this in, going with the grain or whatever painting pattern you're gonna go with. So if you're gonna go, left or right with your paint pattern when you get to the painting steps, you kind of want to feather it in that same way. Jab right down there, make sure you get it real good. And there you go. So I'm not sure how well you can see, but it's just a little bit milky white. But again, it's just gonna dry clear, and that's the beauty of it. And another reason why I started with this one, so you can watch it kind of dry clear as I go through the rest. Next is our white. And like I said in the first video, it's almost gonna completely cover like we painted this surface with our primers, which is the amazing part, because think about how much paint you usually have to use to paint a white onto a surface. I mean, it's usually 3 to 5 coats to really truly cover it when you're painting white if you're just doing the paint only. But if you're using a primer like this, that's gonna have just incredible coverage. You're painting a whole lot less, which is awesome. I mean, it already looks like I painted the whole thing Snow Wild as it is with this. So again, just getting it on, feather it in. And as you can see, this step went a whole lot quicker and covered pretty much completely, which is absolutely amazing. Just feather this in real nice. I'm sure that front side is still kind of messy, but you can see how well 2 coats is going to cover. And again, another reason why we highly recommend 2 coats, because 1 coat's going to cover really well, but that second coat is going to cover completely. And that's really what you're looking for when you're looking for the stain blocking aspect of this. Okay, now we're going to go on to gray. Slapping it on here, and look at how much it's, especially with this raw wood, I mean, it's even filling in the grain, which is kind of neat too. So yep, we're just slapping it on and feathering it in and just watching it get completely covered. And I'm not using a lot. You can see just dipping the very tips of my brush. You don't need a lot of primer. The primer goes a long, long way, which is another great thing about it. Great coverage, goes a long way. Long open time for you to be able to play and get it everywhere you need it to get and feather it in. Look at the coverage on this, it's amazing. So again, you're gonna get stain blocking, especially with those 2 coats. You're gonna get adhesion in case you're painting on something where you're worried about that. Any of those high gloss laminate type surfaces. There you go, that's light gray. And last but not least, our dark gray. And you can see, it goes on a little lighter, darkens up as it dries. And again, 4 to 6 hours is the recommended amount of time between coats, depending on the humidity level and drying time you feel like you have in your area. And then you want to wait at least 6 hours before you paint on it. And my recommendation would be to just wait, let it sit overnight, let it dry completely. If it's still tacky to the touch, you probably want to give it a little bit more time to dry before you start to paint over it. Ultimately, you want the primer to have its time to do its thing, to bond chemically to the surface, to its other layers, to block in all the stain, and you're gonna need to give it time to do that. So you're gonna wanna wait at least 6 hours is the recommendation, and then I like to wait overnight because it just gives it just that little bit of extra time to do what it needs to do. And there you have it. Now, if I needed to, I could do another 220 just to knock down any little bumps or anything I might have given it. But if you do 2 thin coats, you shouldn't really have too much of a problem. It'll just be a light sanding, not anything where you're distressing down through it, just a light sanding over top, and that'll give you a nice, smooth, perfect surface for you to start painting with. And there you have it, all 4 of our Wise-L paint primers. And there you have it, Wise-L paint primer. It's great for stain elimination and great for adhesion. And it comes in 4 different colors. We have clear, white, gray, and now dark gray. If you enjoyed this video, which I hope you did, please hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you can see whenever I add new content. And as always, happy painting.